The first event I chose to research was 1950s pop culture. In this decade, the nation was led by Presidents Harry Truman and Dwight Eisenhower through the iconic struggle between communism and capitalism worldwide. The 1950s marks the first decade home for returning World War II soldiers. Because of this, an extreme expansion of the peacetime economy, a steady increase in population, and a shift toward industrial expansion all marked the beginning of the baby boom era in the United States. The 1950s was a significant time period in the expansion of the American economy. The 50s was nicknamed the Golden Age of Capitalism because the economy saw a 37% growth increase and American families had 30% more purchasing power due to credit. Due to Eisenhower's balanced budget, inflation decreased and unemployment remained low. Returning military veterans had affordable college education due to the GI Bill. This gave a wave of highly educated employees to the American workforce. Another event I chose to research was the expansion of civil rights. Many who have faced discrimination for a variety of reasons, such as gender, sexual orientation, race, disability, age, and religion, have forged newfound civil rights into the backbone of American society. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Webb Du Bois helped reform unconstitutional laws that restricted citizens' civil rights throughout the 1900s. Organizations like the NAACP, the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, have helped gain civil liberties for colored people and peacefully protest the racist Jim Crow laws of the South. In the 1950s, the widespread push for equality gave way to the desegregation of all public school systems. This might have caused Rosa Parks to be one of the first to refuse segregation laws on public transportation. This caused one of the biggest boycotts in United States history, the Montgomery bus boycott.
Proxy wars, Vietnam and Korean War. The Vietnam War happened in South Vietnam, North Vietnam, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia from November 1st, 1955 to the fall of Saigon on April 30th, 1975. Fought against the Americans and Vietnamese. One of the main leaders of the Vietnamese was Ho Chi Minh, who was a Vietnamese communist revolutionary leader. For the U.S., President John F. Kennedy was in office and wanted to free the Vietnamese of their communist ways. Korean War. The Korean War was fought between June 25, 1950 to July 27, 1953. It was a war between South Korea and North Korea. The reason for war was the political division of Korea. Harry S. Truman and Eisenhower were important leaders in the U.S. The main leader in Korea was Kim Il sung.
On December 7, 1941, the U.S. became directly involved in World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The struggling Allies depended on the power of U.S. production through the Lend-Lease Act. The Lend-Lease Act was a program in which the United States supplied Great Britain and other struggling allies with material between 1941 and 1945. The Lend-Lease Act effectively ended the United States' reputation of neutrality and was a decisive step away from non-interventionist policy. The U.S. home front supported the war effort by expanding its wartime production. Industries greatly expanded around the country. Women and minorities expanded their workforce as men were drafted to serve overseas. At the end of World War II, American soldiers returned home to a country quite different from the one they had left 4 years earlier. Wartime production had helped pull America's economy out of a depression, and from the late 1940s on, young adults saw a remarkable rise in their spending power. Jobs were plentiful, wages were higher, and because of the lack of consumer goods during the war, Americans were eager to spend. During the same years, young couples were marrying and having children at unprecedented rates. New and expanded federal programs, including the GI Bill of Rights, allowed many young families to purchase their own homes, often located in rapidly expanding suburbs. An expanded economy led to increased pragmatic spending. Americans looked to expand and modernize their lives through the purchase of televisions, cars, washing machines, refrigerators, toasters, and vacuum cleaners. The New Frontier was a label for JFK's domestic and foreign programs during his administration. The New Frontier promised to revitalize the stagnant economy and enact reform legislation in education, healthcare, and civil rights. Lyndon B. Johnson created the Great Society to eliminate poverty and racial injustices during his administration. In 1965, Congress passed many Great Society measures, including Medicare, Medicaid, civil rights legislation, and federal aid to education. Kennedy and Johnson worked to expand their foreign and domestic policy through the New Frontier, the Great Society, Flexible Response, the Alliance for Progress, and the Peace Corps.